Hey, you guys, get on in here because I am super excited tonight. We are talking about burnout in kids ministry. What is that? None of us experience that, right?
Never,
Of course.
never.
All of us do, and I'm so excited. I can't think of anybody better to have on here than my incredible dear friend Debbie Rhodes. You guys listen. If you have struggled with burnout, if you know someone who needs to be a part of this conversation this evening, I am going to encourage you to go ahead, send them a quick text message, tell them you have to be here because tonight it is all about burnout. We don't want you to be burnt out. God has not called for you to walk in ministry burnt out. And I'm super excited because my friend, I'm gonna put it closer so that people can see it. Debbie Rhodes has come out. I'm covering the post-it note that has your name right here. This
Mine has the bottom part.
this amazing book called The Plate that attacks this issue of burnout. And we are going to talk about it this evening. Hey, as you are coming in, let us know where you guys are from. We are so excited. We get people all over the country. Maybe you're not watching now. Maybe you have to watch the replay. Please still let us know where you're from. And we want you to know that we are so happy that you are here. Debbie, really quickly, let us know a little bit about you as if people don't know about you because we do a million things together. But just in case someone lives under a rock, let them know a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I am Debbie Rhodes, and I am the Children's Ministry Director at Grace Chapel in Franklin, Tennessee. Um, and I have been doing kids ministry for over 30 years. I am very familiar with burnout, hence the reason why we have the book. But I'm also, so before we get to that, but I said I'm here in Franklin, Tennessee. I have two adult children, two adult boys, and I have two amazing grandbabies that call me Gigi.
So what Debbie did not mention is she is like one of the finest like kids ministry leaders out there. And she'll just be like, whatever, Esther, you're just saying that. And I'm like, no, like she's incredible. She's amazing. And I'm just humbled every time that I get to be with her and work with her. And I know that she's going to shower so much wisdom on you this evening. Debbie, let's get into this book.
Let's do it. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, Debbie, I love this book. Can I tell you? I love this book. One, I love that it's not like 50 million pages because
Well, that was on purpose because if you are burned out or in almost burned out, the last thing you need is for you're looking for something to help you, but the last
yeah,
thing you need is for this big, huge, giant book to be placed in your possession. Like, here, read this, it'll help you. And you're like, wait, I'm supposed to do that. So it was purposely
yeah,
created to be shorter, to be able to be
digest
more
it.
digestible.
We were
Yes, to
talking
be
about
more
the plate, like
digestible.
like we have to be
Yes.
able to have a decent size to put on the plate. Listen,
Portion control.
but I love it because I think a lot of us as Kimmin leaders, we're going through the motions of ministry. We're busy here. We're doing this. We're trying to carry the weights of our own families and who knows what. And I'll tell you, and I'll just confess for me, I like the idea of reading books, but sometimes I struggle with actually reading books. So to even see the size of this, I mean, it's a decent size, but it's not like overwhelming. Like to see that encourages me to say, hey, this is something that I could sit down on a break and really get a good chunk of wisdom, like just poured into me. So I just want to encourage you. Listen, you guys, if you do not have the plate, I want you to look it up right now. We want you to get it. We're going to end up putting a link here so that you can have access, so that you can order this amazing resource. Debbie, I'm telling you, I'm reading this book. And the first thing that I want to ask you, the forward was amazing. I don't know who you got to do that. I mean, she's
I have
dynamic.
this amazing woman named Esther Moreno. She is truly an inspiration to me. And I love her so much. She has one of my biggest cheerleaders, and she wrote the foreword for me in this book. Yeah.
I love it. I was reading it today, earlier today. I was like, dang, this is good. Take that,
Thank you.
Chat GPT. Anyway.
Yes, exactly.
But I want to ask you because after that, in the intro, and I want to encourage you because I know for some of us, we're like, okay, let me get to the point. Let me read chapter 1. Let me go straight to this, to the meat. I want to tell you, if you don't read the intro, you are going to miss some of the meat from this book. And I tell you why. So, Debbie, you talked about kind of an uncomfortable like meeting that
It was
like you
horrible.
had where it seems
It was
like there was
horrible.
a strategy. Yeah, it seems like there was a strategy to this meeting because it's like, hey, share something positive about this person. So you're all these leaders in this room, and everyone has to share something positive. And I'm not gonna give away the whole book, but you have to share something positive, and then you have to share an area where you believe this leader can grow in, or something that they should be focused on to help them to develop their leadership skills. And tell us, would you just give us a sneak peek of
Yeah.
who you were among, and just their estimation of things when it came to you in the areas you need to grow in?
Yeah. So just a quick synopsis of that story. I am blessed to be on a church staff that really focuses in on our development and helping us to be self-aware, and just really trying to grow as leaders. And we were doing this activity that was bringing us closer together as a team, but also individually. What do our peers think of us? What do our peers think are things that are very positive? What are things that our peers think that we need to grow in? And so, and this took hours because there was a total of 15 of us in the room. I was the one of the 15. So that's 14 of the people. So I'm about to get 14 points of view, right? Well, I love feedback. I love it. So I had my paper and pen ready. I'm like, let's go. Tell me, what do I need to work on? I know that sounds weird, but you do, you want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be able to, like, if you are having blind spots, like, you want
yeah,
to fix it, because I want to be the best leader that I can be. And so I'm like ready and waiting for this, right? And the thing I was surprised about was that 12 out of the 14 people in the room said the exact same thing. And I was so mad. And they basically said, you need to stop and rest. You need to slow
yeah,
down. You're
yeah,
doing too much. And I was like, are you serious?
yeah,
Like I'm doing God's work.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what is the problem? Like, I doing what I love,
yeah.
like, chill. So yeah,
Debbie,
that
I
was
love this. I
so.
love this. On page 15, I love one of the last people when we crossed over, and they said this to you. You think that you are hiding it, but I can see through you. You are overwhelmed and headed for burnout. Ouch.
That hit me. It was like he threw a brick at my face. It
Wow.
was, and of course, so like in the moment, I'm just like, in the moment you're receiving it,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, thank you. And then you go home and you process it and you bawl your eyes out and you're like, oh
Mm.
my gosh, he's right. He's so right.
Yeah.
And then, like, when you have to go home and process that
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
just said this, and then you're realizing, oh my gosh, I have a problem. This is not
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
God intended me to live out the ministry that He's given me.
Yeah.
And I'm really truly about to head over a cliff.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and the people around me are seeing it, and
Wow.
it's a blind spot for me.
Yeah.
And so I had actually was already writing the book, and then this happened. And so it was like, of so I was like, oh my goodness. So I ended up making this my introduction, because it actually affirmed that I was supposed to do this. And so here, this whole time I'm thinking, oh God, this is so great that you're giving me this, I know you laid it on my heart to write this book,
Yeah.
and I love it that you're allowing me to help all these other people in ministry. And I was so like honored that I'm getting to do this. And then it was like, wait, honey, this isn't for other people. This is for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get to share it with other people. But this is the only way I'm going to get you to listen
Wow.
is by
Wow.
hearing the words that you're writing. And so that was also self-aware, because I'm like, am I not listening to anybody else? So I think I'm the only one that can speak into my life. So it was really
Yeah.
it was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
So
Deborah,
yeah,
let
I
me
had
because I think that that's so important, just to assess and just this experience where you were forced to kind of assess where you were. My question is, how important is it for us as leaders, would you say, to stop and self-assess whether we're headed towards burnout? And really, how can we do that? Like practically, how can we do that without I'm sorry, I'm gonna say this before we're uncomfortable and around all of our peers. How can you save us, Debbie? We don't want this to happen to us.
exactly. Um, there, of course, there is in the chapter, there are lots of questions that you can, and
Yeah.
that I have asking you, like if this is going on. It's like a whole list of like 20 things. um I had went to a conference, the Kids Matter
Yeah.
conference, and I got to do this as a breakout, and I went through the 20, I'm trying to find it in here, about like, hey,
Yeah.
do I have burnout?
Yeah.
And it was just these simple questions that you can ask yourself. And so I had asked these questions out loud to them, and I said, now just count the number. And so then afterwards, there was like maybe 100 plus people in the room. And then afterwards, all through the conference, I was having people coming to me telling me their number. I had 18, I had 20, I had 19. I would have had 20, but I don't have children. And so it was just like all
Wow.
these numbers. And so it was and these were basically just signs to, we can self-assess by just um looking at how overwhelmed we are. So I can just give you just a few of those to think about, how your productivity is
Mm.
inconsistent.
Yeah.
um um you start to do only what you absolutely have to do.
Mm.
So I'm just going to name a few of these. Sometimes your to-do list is so big that you don't even know where to start.
Wow.
um or you're so overwhelmed that you just shut down and you take a nap, so you
Yeah.
don't even like and then I mean, then we can get down to the part where you become so easily irritated and frustrated
Yeah.
with your family and your coworkers. um you find it more difficult to do basic communication. Like
Yeah.
you can't even answer like basic text messages and emails. And so you can't even, or like as a taking care
Mm.
of just basic household duties
Yeah.
become. And so like when you're in your house and you're doing a lot of times, here's what happens, and this is what was happening with me. I'm going to be really honest here. I love to do um eh, here's, and this is also telling you a little bit more about, um I've been asked recently, what are my hobbies? I don't know, because
Wow.
I no longer know what my hobbies are.
Yeah.
Because my hobby has been the ministry. I have
Mm.
been in a certain season of my life where my kids are grown. So I'm in a season where I don't have children. So around where, and I get to be Gigi, but that's on a schedule. So I don't have kids with me every day. And so,
Yeah.
and I have a husband that works a lot of hours. And so I decided to, one of the things I love is church work. And I love
Yeah.
that. And I love working in the church, but also, when you're also doing church work, I think we take for granted how much that weighs on us. It's not just, um, there's tasks, but there's a lot of church work. It's a lot of, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with people issues. There's so much emotional toll that takes on that, and a spiritual toll that we do not, that we take for granted, and we don't take time to rest in that. We don't take time um, to really make sure that we're being healthy in that manner. And so I was so immersed in this because I love it, but I was so
Yeah.
immersed in this that it was just, I did only what I had to do at home. Yes, I took care of my
Yeah.
husband and my family, and I know they're, but I didn't, things were starting to suffer.
Yeah.
And so when I started realizing my family is suffering,
Yeah.
that is not, that is
Yeah.
absolutely not how God intended us to be. So
Wow.
that's like a really big, huge sign right there.
Wow.
If your
Wow.
spouse is being neglected, you know,
I love it. You talk about in the book, Debbie, and obviously in the book you address all of these questions. So you guys need to get this book, but you kind of introduce, what you're gonna address. All these questions because what burnout is, and I love this. It's one of my favorite parts. It says because burnout lies to you. It sneaks up on you. It makes you feel inadequate. Is brutal. A family destroyer, a job destroyer, a life destroyer has the ability to take you out of the ministry. It's a weapon of the enemy. But then I love how you give us hope and you say, but it is avoidable and it can
yes.
be redeemed. And
Hmm.
and I love that. And if you're watching, I hope that one, I hope this excites you to get this book. I hope this makes you say, "Man, I need this book because I'm so burnt out." But I need to know that it's avoidable because I think for so many of us as kidmin leaders, we can be in such a dark place. We can think that this just cannot be redeemed. This is just my life. I'm burnt out, stressed, just all of that. Debbie, in the book, you talk about plates. Obviously, you named the book The Plate. So obviously, we are talking about plates, but I love how you talk about different plates. And I want us to kind of get into like what these plates mean. I'm going to try to remember. We talked about a dinner plate. We
Hmm.
talked about my favorite, the dessert plate. And then we talked about
Yeah.
a platter. Can you kind of break that
Yeah.
down of what that means and what
Yeah.
it should look like?
Yeah, so the regular plate is our normal, like I call it our life plate. So that's the
Yes.
plate that everybody gets. It's a normal size plate that we all have that we live off of. So all of the things that you do in life, your job, your ministry, your family, all of those things. There's the dessert plate, of course, we think of that as a smaller plate. So this is a very brief, we can go into more detail if you want. The dessert plate is a smaller plate that there's sometimes we have things in our life where things come up um, where simply cannot, we don't have the capacity to hold a regular full size plate. And so
Yeah.
we need to just, all we can hold is just a small amount of things on our plate.
Yeah.
So, for example, if we're dealing with a sickness and we're not healthy and we need to get ourselves healthy, if we're having issues with our marriage, if one of our children is struggling and we need to take care of that, or maybe you are going through some serious spiritual battles that you need to deal with. There are going to be seasons that you need to recognize that you need to just, well, all you can deal with is the dessert plate. And I describe that as where you
Yeah.
can only just deal with the sweetest things in life. And the
Mhm.
sweetest things in life would be my family, of course, my relationship with God. And you're just dealing with just the sweetest things, and everything else can't fit.
Yeah.
Just the
Wow.
sweetest things of life is all you can deal with at that time. Now we're not meant to just have a dessert plate. We're meant, we can do other things, and of course what we choose to put on our plate is up to us. We're not, no one else decides what's on our plate but us. But
Yeah.
then there's also the platter, which I describe the platter as like VBS season, or like for kids pastor, it's like a
Yeah.
VBS
Yeah.
seasons in our life where we have a lot going on. um you know it Sometimes when there's like a lot going on with the house,
Yeah.
we only bring out the platter during special occasions. You
Yeah.
don't serve your normal dinner on the turkey platter like I have a turkey platter at home that I literally use once a year.
Yeah.
It's only for the turkey. Maybe I'll use it for something else, maybe twice a year, but it's not meant to use all the time. But what I found, this book is so written by through my experiences. It's so scary.
I know it is.
Is
I
that
love
I was carrying around my life plate as a dessert plate, as a platter. And
Yeah.
platters aren't meant to live like a life on a platter all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Living that kind of like
Yeah.
overwhelming, I have so much to do all the time kind of
Yeah.
lifestyle. And
Yeah.
a lot of us are living that lifestyle, and that is not how a season, that's okay. But to do it
Yeah.
all the time, that is absolutely not okay.
Yeah. Debbie, I love how you talked about, well, I think that you said something really important a second ago. And I remember reading this in the book, and I remember that you said, I know it's hard to 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 accept this, but the truth is we control what's on our plates and what's not on our plates. And
Hmm.
you begin to talk about, I mean, you give a couple of tips, and I'm not going to give them all away, but just kind of signs. And one is not being able to say no. So I loved it because you kind of crossed over into two things. Because when we think about no, sometimes we think about boundaries, and I want to go there. But you talk about being careful not to burn out our go-to people on page 22.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, this is so good, because how many of us in kids ministry, we love our go-to people. I mean, if we are to
Yeah.
be honest, we love people who struggle to say no, because if we are struggling and we need help, we know that we can go to them, that we can get help. Speak to us a little bit on that. Help us, Debbie, to not burn out our go-to people. How can we protect those reliable people who are always there for us to say yes, and to really, and to identify maybe when they're burnt out? What advice do you have for
Yeah.
us
And
today?
so what I found, what one of my big issues that I had was, I there so I saw this from two different angles. Is one of the reasons why I burned out, for the one of the first things I had done, was I was trying to I was taking things on to my plate,
Mm,
thinking, oh, this has nothing to do with anybody else, this is just me. Well, I have
yeah,
a team, I have a staff, and then I have a staff of 7, then we have a volunteer team of about 150. And so, and I think, oh, this is only going to affect me. Well, what was
yeah,
happening is everything that I do and add to my plate spills over onto my
yeah,
team, because what happens is, if I let things drop, my team has to
yeah.
pick it up. And so
Wow.
what was happening is my assistant, I have an amazing assistant named Karen.
I
Karen with a
know
Y,
everybody
so she's
knows
not
Karen.
an extra. I have an amazing assistant, Karen, and I was totally, and I realized, and she, of course, she will just pick it up and she won't say a word, and she'll just love me and take care of it. And then I realized, I'm like, what is going on? Like, why? And I realized that I was actually burning her out because of what
Wow.
I was picking up, and
Mm.
it was flowing over onto her. And so then I overcompensated. And so then I started protecting my team. I was doing everything I could to make sure I wasn't burning them out. And then I
Mm.
was doing so much more to make sure that
Oh,
they weren't burning out, and I was burning myself out. And so so basically is just really making sure that I'm in active
yeah.
communication with them and asking them, okay, what is on your plate today? That's a very big conversation. I meet with them once a week. What's on your plate this week? Um, so like I know what their normal plate looks like. What is being added to your plate this week? Okay, can we handle this week?
Yeah.
Because it's not. I mean, we have tasks, but then once again, it's not just
Mm.
tasks. We also Tasks are just a small part of our ministry. It's people,
Yeah.
and we have to take care of
Yeah.
those people. And if we're filling it up with just tasks, we
Yeah.
don't have room to take care of our people and love on our
Yeah.
people, and that's more important. And so what was happening is we were task, and we had
Mm.
no margin left over to love. And
Wow.
that's what God really, really called us to do. He called us to do all these tasks, called us to love. And
Wow.
so, yes.
That is so good, Debbie. I mean, how many of you watching this evening? And I love Debbie because Debbie is so real. How many of you can say that you stop and you talk to your people and you say, "Hey, what's on your plate this week?" And you show a concern and a care, and you really love on your people. I love this. This is so good. Debbie, I'm going to challenge you with something else. I love having Debbie on, first of all, these conversations, because, you know, you have some people on who are like, okay, let me be politically correct in my answers. And Debbie is just like, I'm going to be laid bare. And I love it because this is what we need. Debbie, I want to ask you a question, because I think that there are some kids ministry leaders out there who feel like I have no choice. I know you're telling me I have a choice. I feel like I don't have a choice. And they're struggling with boundaries, maybe even with their senior leadership. And they're like, look, I'm overwhelmed. I feel like they give me all this and I'm at capacity. Would you speak really quickly to those people, just whatever advice that comes out of you? How can we have boundaries with those maybe who are higher up, maybe those who are higher up who are passing these tasks that you mentioned down to us? How can we have boundaries and still maintain a positive relationship, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I know that's hard. One, there's
Mm-hmm.
always a choice.
Yeah.
Always a choice. And I know, and I talked to so many people since this book has come out. I mean, and it breaks my heart that I've seen. I know I am very, very blessed to be in a ministry where I have leadership that respects my boundaries and um, actually expects me to have good boundaries and will actually get on to me if I do not have good boundaries. And so I'm actually very grateful for that, but I know that that is not always the case. And so I'm not naive to that. But like I said, we choose what we get to put on our plate. And I think a lot of it starts with, if I can go back just a second and before I answer that question, I will get to that question. But first, I think before it gets to that, is I think sometimes we will, we have so many things on our plate that we think that we're the only ones that can do it. And a lot of times, so I would actually recommend that what we do is we literally make a list of absolutely every single thing you do. I mean, everything. It could be things from at home, things at work, things that I'm speaking about ministry because that's basically who we're talking to. What are things that you do? And then you go through and you circle, what are things that only I can do? Not things, things like this, I want to do this. No, but can someone else do it? Well, I would have to train them. Then yes, someone else could do that. If there's only things that you can do and everything else, you just need to start praying, God, who can I pass this on to? Who can I give this to? And you would be surprised how many people in your ministry are just waiting for an opportunity to be able to come alongside people that, we forget that when we were young and we were in ministry, people came along and trusted us and gave us a chance to grow in ministry. And it is our responsibility to do the same thing. And so we have to first, so we're able to do that. So then, going forward, so then here's the thing. So doing that, but then, so here's the thing, you're setting your boundaries, you're deciding what's on your plate, what's not on your plate. You need to make sure, first of all, that you are having your time with God and you have time for your family. So incredibly important. If your boundaries are at a point where you're not able to have a Sabbath, there's something wrong. You need to have a Sabbath. This was very hard for me. I was like, Sabbath, what's that? What is this Sabbath you speak of? It wasn't even in my vocabulary, and not even thinking, well, it's no big deal. It is a very big deal. It is a very big deal. And that is, I think that is one big, huge boundary that has to be like, I have to be able to have this for your family, for your own sanity. But if you
Yeah.
have helping them to understand, like, if I don't get this, if I don't, like, this is what I have on my plate. I think a lot of times when you go to your leadership, a lot of times they don't really know what you have on your plate.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're like, oh, I have too much on my plate. They don't really know. They don't
Yeah.
see what you do. They only see maybe like this much of all of this that you
Yeah.
do. And so you might have to have a conversation with, like, okay, I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to like make you think that I can't handle things, because I think a lot of
Yeah.
times we think, well, if they don't think I can't handle this, they're going to fire me. No,
Yeah.
I am very kids ministry people, I think, are the most high capacity leaders I have
Yeah.
ever seen in my life. So it's not that I'm not high capacity. I can handle these things, but I need you to understand, this is what I have on my plate.
Yeah.
This is what I can do. But I have this boundary. I have to keep this boundary, and I need you to respect this boundary. I will do these things for you, but I have to have this boundary,
Yeah.
and I need you to respect this boundary. What can we do to make sure that this
Mm.
boundary is done? And um, and you would be
Mm.
surprised. I mean, I'm seeing kids directors, kids people having these conversations. It's changing the way they're leading. It's hard. It is hard, but it is working. And what they're finding a lot of times is, I will tell you, some of it. I'm going to tell you that most of our burnout is self-inflicted. I'm not,
Yeah.
I know we could say, well, it's not, well, they keep putting stuff on me. They keep putting stuff on me. They keep putting stuff on me. And yes, that happens. There are a lot of times it's like, it's not, it's like, there are a lot of things we can't control until we realize, wait, I can control with the conversation, if that makes any sense.
Yep. Yep.
But we self-inflict by not speaking up. We self-inflict by saying yes. We self-inflict by thinking that we're the only ones that can do it. We self-inflict by thinking that we have to be involved in absolutely everything, and by being a control freak. And it's like, I have to do it this way. And so,
That's
but
so good.
if you do not have those boundaries, you will have burnout, period. So it's like, okay, I'm going to read this book and then I'm not going to burn out. That's so not true. You can read this book, and if it's not about it's about, okay, this is basically what this is going to help you do is to become self-aware so you can then do the work.
Mm.
It's not like, okay, I read this book and now I'm not going to be burned out anymore. No, okay, I'm going to be self-aware. Now it's like, okay, now I need to make a decision, because you have to make a choice to make a change.
Wow. I told y'all Debbie is amazing. I mean, I know y'all already get. I mean, half y'all already know this anyway. Debbie, leave us with some last words of encouragement for those when it comes to burnout.
Like what you had said earlier is that it is avoidable, but it also it can be redeemed. And I am telling you that because I have lived through this. It is so difficult to be on the edge. And here's the thing, when you realize that you could lose your ministry that you love so much, and you could lose your family, or you can lose friendships, or like you can lose a lot because of burnout, and you think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You lose your health. When you realize what's at stake because you won't make a decision to have better boundaries in your life. Here's what I want to encourage you with is that when you make the choice to say, I want to live the ministry that God has intended me to live, because God has called you. God has made a decision to say you are the person to reach that church, to reach the children at that church, to reach the people around you. And I need you to do this. He doesn't take that calling away from you. And he needs us to be wise. And we can do this, and we can back it up. We don't have to, burnout doesn't have to be, and
Yeah.
it can be reversed. And here's what happens. Here's what is so cool about it. When you make a choice to be healthy with your boundaries and healthy to ensure that you're avoiding burnout, it truly affects everybody around you. When you're burned out, it affects everybody around you in a negative way. But when you choose healthy boundaries, it affects everyone around you, because here's what's happened. My whole team is becoming very healthy with their boundaries.
Wow.
My whole entire team. And here's what's happened is they actually know that I respect their boundaries. And like my volunteer team, they know that their boundaries are respected. And it has just become, we have become closer as a team. We actually work better together as a team. It has just become more of what God has intended it to be. And it's been absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
And so it can be done. Yes.
Wow. Debbie, thank you so much for just being with us this evening. You are just this breath of fresh air. Your spirit, you are just this incredible light. Thank you for being a light for all of us. You guys, I know that you got so much out of this evening. Remember, we are here every third Tuesday of the month simply to grow together and to get better together. So we will see you this same time, same place next month. You guys have a great night.